What's going on, everyone? PFL 2021, number 7. We swore we were never going to do this again. Greasy old PFL, greasiest organization in the game. But hey, we're fight fans. There's no UFC on this weekend. So, we'll have a gander. Ironically enough, last time we sat here and we spoke about said PFL. Massive screw job, greasy screw job, Rory MacDonald, Gleison Tibau. And again, ironically enough, we get to talk about it 2 months later as Rory MacDonald headlines the card, Gleison Tibau, the same cast of characters that you've grown to love. And now, instead of being the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, we go into Florida, Hollywood, Florida, to be exact. So it's a fun-looking card entertainment-wise, but we're going to have to definitely be careful. The Bellator side of things, Bellator likes to go heavy with the favorites. The PFL side of things, they like to flash the favorites. And then when you go all in, it's like a dirty poker trick, right? They're flashing like they got something. We go a little too heavy on it, and these favorites, they got nothing, right? So we got to sniff out the apple pie shitters well in advance so that we don't make any grave mistakes. I'm sure some of them will shit in the pie, but hopefully not the ones that we have a massive investment in. So starting off, we got Ray Cooper III taking on Rory MacDonald. Rory coming in again, even though he's coming off a loss. The favorite -170 comeback on Ray Cooper III +150. I think we can all agree that Rory got screwed against Gleison Tibau. That's the popular opinion. Not a whole lot of people outside of those two judges and a couple trolls that really scored the fight for Gleison Tibau. However, we can also all agree Rory looked like shit in that fight. Really did. He's just way too lackadaisical. And this is not just a Rory's last fight problem. This is a Rory's all of his losses for the most part problem. Outside of that legendary war with Robbie Lawler a long time ago, he's more risk adverse now. He's not getting in there and turning up the volume. He's not getting into these wild exchanges. He's just kind of staying back, using the jab, using the kicks, using some rangefinders, not throwing combinations. Remember back in the day when he fought like Nate Diaz and he just German suplexed him 3 times? It was just like, oh man, this is dope. Remember when he fought, BJ Penn and he was just stringing these 5-6 punch combinations together? It was like, oh man, this guy's dope. He has all those skills. And even now, he's not old. He's not over the hill. He's in the prime of his career. He still has all those skills, but he just kind of chooses to take his foot off the gas. So yes, he loses the fight to Gleison Tibau. Yes, we thought it was a robbery, but he kind of did it to himself. And you look back at his other losses, the Douglas Lima fight the second time around, again, didn't do anything. Gegard Mousasi fight, he got cut right through. The John Fitch fight, absolutely abysmal performance. Now, does he sprinkle in a couple wins along the way? Yes, but those wins are kind of tailor-made to him, I mean, naming Gracie's case, he's a pretty one-dimensional jiu-jitsu guy. He's a Gracie, as you would assume, and he just doesn't have the other skills that an elite martial artist would need. So Rory can win a fight like that. The fight with Curtis Millender. Curtis Millender's got the worst takedown defense in the game. Rory was obviously going to get him down, and when he did, he was able to choke him out. He's got high-profile wins, and he is a really top-level guy. But mentally, you just don't know what version of him is going to show up. And keep in mind, he starts off, this is like a character crisis. He's like looking for the real Rory MacDonald. Will the real Rory MacDonald please stand up? That was actually a bit of a tongue twister when you say it pretty fast. But he starts off, he's the water boy. He's out of BC. He's the water boy. He signs to the UFC. He's undefeated. He's the water boy, Rory MacDonald. And then it's like, oh, you know what? I'm not the water boy anymore. I'm Ares. I'm Ares, Rory Ares MacDonald, the god of war. And he moves over to TriStar and he's the god of war. And then at some point says, nah, I'm not the god of war anymore. I'm the Red King. Now he's Rory the Red King MacDonald. And it's just like his style has changed with his personality. He got really religious, and you'll hear him talk about it a lot. In Bellator, he'd even make mention like, oh, well, God was in there with me tonight and told me to take it easy. It's like, that's all not stuff you want to hear at somebody that you're going to back into a prize fight, especially if you're going to back your dollar behind him. So as much as we like him, and he's super skilled, and he's live in any fight, he could fight any man in the world. He could fight for a UFC title, and he'd still be live in a sense that he's got the goods, but his ability to put the goods together is kind of what worries me. If this was a 5-round fight, I think like Rory would win those championship rounds and be able to secure himself at worst a decision over Ray Cooper. What worries me in this spot is that Ray Cooper is much more of a go-getter. I mean, he is a pretty well-rounded guy when you consider striking is his best trait. He's got very, very heavy hands. Pretty much the only guy to ever knock out Chris Curtis, which is definitely a feather in the cap. He's the PFL $1 million champion already. He's got some high-level experience, but he's been relying on his wrestling a lot lately, just grinding these guys up against the fence, searching for takedowns. His last fight against Nikolai Alexikin, I thought he was probably going to be outgunned in that matchup, but no, just grinds on him. And Alexikin is in fantastic shape, but Cooper has a way of just kind of going with it. I mean, he's definitely a go-getter. He's got that wily style. I could see a world where if the judges scored the fight for Gleison Tibau, I could see the same world where they could score the fight for Ray Cooper, because I do believe that he'll be out there out hustling Rory MacDonald. Now, Ray Cooper's only like 5'7", doesn't have a big reach on him, right? Whereas Rory's going to be a much taller guy. We know he's got the jab. We know he's got those distance kicks. If this thing stays at distance, Rory will chip away and the judge will probably give him the decision. But if Ray's able to mix in, close the pocket, kill the distance, land some of those hooks on the inside, dirty box him, press him up against the cage, and just kind of have the higher activity rate, I could see him squeaking one off. So Rory definitely shitting an apple pie last time out. He was a big favorite over Gleison, and he just, even though he should have won, he really didn't look impressive the whole way out, and it was a bad bet. This fight, Ray Cooper, to me, is a better competitor than Gleison Tibau at this stage. He's got better wrestling. He's stronger. He's got better cardio. Gleison's got mad experience. Well, we can never take that away from him. However, Ray Cooper is a good competitor as well. So they're giving you underdog money here, and I just don't want to get burned by Rory twice in a row. So shitty judging aside, it's going to be a close fight, probably one that goes all 3 rounds, and I'm just hoping that they're going to edge it for Ray Cooper. So I will take that slight underdog shot, but as far as parlay goes and all that, it's going to be lower on the parlay list. Moving on, we got the co-main event, Magomedkerimov versus Sadibou Sai. So this one probably is a straight-up work. Not a work from the sense that Magomedkerimov knows it's a work, not a work in the sense that Sadibou Sai is going to lay over, but a work in the sense that the company has very specifically put this fight together for a very specific reason. So again, if you're Magomedkerimov, this is a guy that's brought in, and he's got big wins over in Russia. He's an absolute tyrant of a fighter. He's managed by Ali Abdelaziz. PFL's got an interest in this guy. He comes into the 2019 season and should win this entire season. They match him up with Chris Curtis the first time around, beats him. Now we get into the finals. He's got to win one fight, go into the finals, fight for $1 million. He takes on Chris Curtis in the rematch. And again, man, this guy's high level. Like, Chris Curtis is hard to take down, let alone do it repeatedly for 15 minutes. He gives him an absolute grinding. You know, he stays out of harm's way standing. Magomedkerimov has got legitimate skills. Now he needs to fight one more time, make $1 million. And he pulls out of the fight due to an illness. They relate it as an unknown illness. But as a result, Chris Curtis comes back into the tournament and ends up getting knocked out by Ray Cooper. So the fact that Magomedkerimov fought that one fight, right, and then pulls out, gives up his chance at winning that $1 million. And that would have been a very bitter pill to swallow if you were not only him, but his management company, who probably stands to rake about 15, 20% off of this $1 million payout, you know, $200,000 payout for the management company, Ali and friends. And for him to pull out of the tournament, that I think that would be very tough. So was he ill? Did he get sick after the fight? Could be. I mean, nobody really fights twice in one night anymore for a good reason. It takes a toll on the body. And Chris Curtis is an easy opponent, so he probably exerted himself in that fight. But I would reckon that he may have injured himself, and they just listed it as an illness. To further the theory, I think he probably injured his knee in specific, right? So now 2020 season gets canceled because of the pandemic. So now we move on to the 2021 season. So he's had to wait a year to come back, and surely he's got the odds-on favorite to win this season's $1 million tournament, no problem. First round of the tournament, pulls out of the fight. This is going to be very tough because the way PFL works is it's a season-long format, but the season's only 2 fights, and then you jump into the playoffs, which means you have 2 fights to accumulate as many points as you can. And there's a whole field of guys trying to accumulate as many points as they can. If you were to miss a fight, losing those points is huge, man. Likely not going to qualify if you miss one of the fights and you only fight once. Everyone else gets to fight twice. But if you were to only fight just the one time, you would surely need a first-round finish. Score the 8 points. You get 8 points for a first-round finish. I think you get 6 points for a second-round finish, 4 points for a third-round finish, 3 points for the win. You want to get the first-round finish. That would ensure you a spot in the playoffs. So when Magomedkerimov missed his first fight, he essentially needed to get a first-round finish in the second fight to get into the playoffs, or their $1 million dreams gone again. So what does the PFL management do? No problem. We'll give you Curtis Millender. Curtis Millender has absolutely no takedown defense. He has a very weak submission game. He just got submitted in the first round by Rory MacDonald, who pretty much doesn't submit anybody. If Magomedkerimov had a tailor-made opponent to get the 8 points and advance to the playoffs, that's exactly who it would be. They gave him it. And then to go back to that knee injury theory, the fight only lasts about 2 minutes, but Millender kicks him in the knee early, and it buckles the knee, and he limps on it. And this is a guy that not only pulled out of that last tournament with something, but just pulled out of the first round of this tournament 2 months ago with an injury. So he's still ginger on it. But PFL knows what they're doing. He gets the takedown. He gets the first round finish. And now he advances. Well, now here's issue 2. We got our fighter through. We greased it to get him through. But we got our fighter through. But the problem is he's the number 4 seeded guy out of 4. And the number 1 seeded guy is going to be Rory MacDonald once he beats Rory Tibau in tonight's main event. Well, that's not good for business because we want our guy fighting for the $1 million. And if he fights Rory in the first round, good chance he could lose. Rory's the tournament. If this guy's not the tournament favorite, Rory's the tournament favorite. So we got to avoid that matchup. So how do you avoid that matchup? They fucked Rory on the decision so that Rory lost the fight, didn't get the points required to be the number 1 seeded guy, and now Joe Zaffarino becomes the number 1 seeded guy, meaning Magomedkerimov would fight him in the first round and avoid Rory until potentially the finals. So that in itself is a greasy move. Now, to go further along, Joe Zaffarino is also managed by Dominance MMA, Ali Abdelaziz and Friends. Same management company as Magomedkerimov. So he's not going to fucking throw the fight, right? But as a company, you would know who's got a better chance of winning this $1 million tournament. Joe Zaffarino, mid-30s, tough BJJ black belt, but lackluster cardio. Like, no, Magomedkerimov got a better chance to win. But we don't want Joe to throw a fight because we still got to promote him and get him bigger fights down the road and whatnot. So Joe Zaffarino bows out of the fight, pulls out. So now we need a replacement. And who do they get? Sari Busai, Swedish Muay Thai fighter, tall, gangly, pretty good standing, good footwork. But once you take him down, which is his kryptonite, it should be Magomedkerimov all day long. So anyways, I'm not telling you anything the odds maker doesn't already know. It's Magomedkerimov 6-1. And though I do speculate his knee could be compromised and you're not going to see the best version of him, again, it's been probably set up for a very specific reason. So I'm just going to follow with that and go with Magomedkerimov. Clay Collard versus Rush Manfio. Much closer fight. I believe Clay is a -162 favorite. Comeback on Rush Manfio, that +135 range. This one's going to be close. So Clay Collard's been a darling of mine and Paul Shaughnessy's on the Dogger Pass. I mean, he's just got that style where he's always going to come forward. He always lets his hands go. He just throws absolute punches and bunches, volume all over. Pro boxing experience and high-level pro boxing experience as well. You know, solid victories in the pro boxing world and just fought in pretty much all prospects his whole way through. In MMA, he's got some decent grappling. His wrestling's okay, but he just swarms opponents, works the body well, goes up top, you know, solid enough fighter. The problem is he takes a ton of damage almost every time out. You know, when he's boxing, he just comes forward, reckless abandon. These guys are landing counters at will on him, but his pressure and his tenacity and his pace just breaks them, right? But they're hitting him. He's just able to take it, beat them. You know, he's only 28 years old. Still got a great chin on him. He takes the punches. But you see it's wearing on him. It's wearing on him. It's wearing on him. And the more tape that becomes available, the more his opponent's coaches are going to start seeing, and they are seeing, okay, this is exactly what he does. He moves forward in a straight line. He sets up his shots like this. He doesn't move his head, but he's got a great chin. He gets away with it. So first round of the PFL tournament, he leaves the pro boxing world, comes off a pair of decision losses, albeit to good guys, but loses a couple fights in boxing, comes back to MMA and gets the fight with Anthony Pettis in the first round of the tournament. So this is great for business because it's a big plus money tag on Clay Collard. We all know that Anthony Pettis is not Anthony Pettis anymore, and Clay Collard has the kind of style that just like that aggression is usually what beats Anthony Pettis, and it worked out really well. But again, the first round, he looks great. The second round, oh my God, stop the fight. He almost TKOs Anthony Pettis. In the third round, he's taking a lot of damage. It's not necessarily that he's tired, but his body's just not reacting as well anymore. And then he takes a hell of a kick to the head, gets dropped in the third round. Pettis, for whatever reason, follows him to the ground instead of just backing away and getting him to stand back up. That little bit of time on the ground allows him to clear the cobwebs. He survives. He wins the decision. So thrilling win, solid plus money hit. Everybody's happy about that. But at the same time, it's like it's just more accumulated damage. And again, when you look at his box rec, he's boxing like every month, every other month. And when you're mixing in MMA fights while you're boxing, even as a young guy, that wear and tear, I think, slows you down. So his next fight against Jolton Luderbach, he's a -260 favorite. Everyone's on the train now. Sweet, Clay Collard's the man. And Jolton Luderbach just lost to Rush Manfio. We're going to talk about in a bit. Why not jump on this? Why not jump on the Clay Collard bandwagon right now? But again, that fight, he looked awful. it looked awful. He was lucky to squeak by with the split decision, and a lot of it was like mental fatigue. Jolton Luderbach was a much bigger man and used his wrestling effectively, but that was the problem, is that Clay would land a couple combinations and then all of a sudden just get taken down. Luderbach would just control him up against the cage, routinely was just grounding him, and you just saw he looked exhausted the whole way through. This is a guy with great cardio. This is a guy that just went a 15 hard with Anthony Pettis, but that's the problem. These fights are every 2 months, so it's super important to get out with as little damage as possible. And in his case, he had already come into that Pettis fight with a ton of damage and just accumulated fights. He fought something like 6 fights in 7 months, right? That's a lot. So his last fight against Jolton Luderbach, again, I thought he was lucky to get the win. We had him bet. We were so happy that we were on the right side of that Greasy decision. But it wasn't a great look. Manfio, meanwhile, both of his fights in the PFL tournament have been split decisions, and they're the exact same opponents as Clay Collard, right? Jolton Luderbach and Anthony Pettis. His fight with Luderbach, he's able to keep it standing and land the better strikes, all by close. I thought he did win that one, legitimately. In the Anthony Pettis fight, Pettis started off pretty good. Pettis was probably on his way to winning that fight, but Pettis started to tire, and this kid came through. He's also got some boxing experience as well. Apparently, he was brought in as a sparring partner for Jake Paul recently. Take that with what you will. But all I'm saying is that this is probably going the full 15. It's probably going to be a close fight. And as much as I do love me some Clay Collard, it's probably a dog or pass type situation. So if you're looking for who's going to shit in the apple pie this week, based on Clay's last fight, I would say it's possible that he gets outpointed from the outside from a smarter, more tactical rush Manfio. And if Manfio can mix in a few takedowns along the way as well, then he's really rolling, right? Because it looked like Jolton Luderbach put the plan out there and everybody could just emulate it, but he's also a big boy, so only time can tell there. Loic Radzhabov versus Alex Martinez. This is a rematch. Loic and Martinez fought to a pretty competitive split decision loss in the first round of the tournament. Martinez got a split decision victory over Loic in the first round of the tournament. I did not agree with that decision whatsoever at the time. Mind you, Alex Martinez is Canadian. I have a Canadian bias towards him. Didn't agree with it. He was routinely taken down all 3 rounds, repeatedly, time and time again. And when Loic would get on top, he was doing a lot of controlling, but no ground and pound. And so Martinez is throwing up submissions the whole way. He's looking for arm bars. He's looking to snatch the neck up. He's looking to he's working off his back, albeit he's on his back. And truthfully, I thought that, one guy's getting the takedowns, right? He's defending all these submission attempts. He's evading them all. He's getting out of everything. He's not landing a ton on top, but he's maintaining that top control. I thought he won the fight. I truthfully did. When they announced it for a win for Martinez, it seemed like almost Martinez was surprised. Like, oh shit, I won this fight. Pretty crazy. Didn't agree with it. So Loic's second fight now, again, this is a tournament. We need points. He lost a fight, effectively gets no points. Now you need something big. So he comes in the next fight with Valiev. Valiev is a pretty good striker, right? Tough guy. Loic came in, and right off the hop at weigh-ins, you saw Loic was twice the size of this guy. Goes in there, bombs in the first round, 26 seconds in, knocks him out, takes no damage, scores the 8 points for the first round finish, punches a ticket over to the playoffs. Perfect. Matches up with Martinez again. Awesome. And Radzhabov, yeah. So again, this is going to be much of the same. I think he's going to go out there. He's going to get those takedowns. He's going to grind. And I think this time the judges will get it right. For Alex Martinez, it looks like he's super durable, and his submission game is wily enough that he stays out of harm's way. But he did the same thing in his next fight with Nathan Schultz. He kept it close and competitive, but ultimately lost a split decision. People thought he lost, or he should have won that fight, but the judges got it wrong. And I thought he should have lost his first fight against Loic, and the judges got it wrong. All I'm saying is that judges usually get it wrong, or at least these close fights, it's just way too open to interpretation. But in Martinez's case, Loic knows now he can get out of the submission attempts. He knows a little bit better now how he likes to set things up. And for Martinez, yeah, you know that Loic wants to take you down, but what can you do about that? Nothing. He's unbelievably strong, and he's got one of these classic Russian styles. There's not enough activity, but it's super effective. And I think it'll be more effective this time around. So, Loic Radzhabov, and again, I think he's only a minus 150. He's currently sitting as a minus 150 favorite comeback on Alex Martinez 130. So I could see people saying, geez, Martinez beat him the last time, and now he's a plus 130. Why not take it? But odds makers know the same thing. Loic probably should have won that fight. And I do expect this one to be a little more decisive. Curtis Millender versus Gleison Tibau. This one worries me. Because, of course, you're going to have Gleison Tibau was supposed to take on Michael Terrill, but now he is, I guess it's pretty well even money, right? Gleison Tibau's minus 120, come back on Curtis Millender plus 102. If we get better plus money on Curtis Millender, might be willing to consider it at the very least. He's a very gifted striker. I don't think anybody's taking away anything from him in that realm. The problem is that this is a mixed martial arts contest, and his wrestling is just no good. And it's not by lack of effort. The guy wrestled in high school. The guy trains his takedown defense. And when he comes out there, he shows flashes of it here and there. But chain wrestling tends to eventually dump him on his ass. And when he's on his back, it is not a pretty sight whatsoever. And I'm not talking about elite level guys, because obviously when he was in the UFC, he was taking on some tough guys, like, just better level guys. Zaleski dos Santos caught him in the rear naked choke. Bilal Muhammad, still a top 15 guy within the division. He was losing to some high-end guys. It's when he signed with Bellator thereafter that you really saw his game's not improving, and there's not much to it. Sabah Hamasi, of all people, took him down, give him a royal grind, took him down at will, give him a royal grinding, won all 3 rounds. It was tough to watch from Millender. Whenever he got anything going in the striking department, Sabah would just step in, grab a hold of him, peel him to the ground. And when he's on his back, you might as well just look away for the rest of the round. He doesn't get up. He has no get-up game. He's tall, lanky, long-limbed. It doesn't allow him to create a lot of space to explode back up to a better position. So he mostly just accepts it. You're able to neutralize his legs and control him, and that's the end of it. So that is always going to be a massive issue. And Gleison Tibau, at his best, surely is going to go out there and score takedowns over Curtis Millender, of course. But Gleison's not really at his best. Like at 38, he doesn't really have like the ability to just I don't know. He might be able to just get a takedown, make this look like a easy walk in the park, and at minus 120, Gleison Tibau would be your play of the week. But I just kind of get a bad feeling that Millender is going to be a lot faster. He's going to stay to the outside, and he's just going to strike. And when Gleison, he's got a willingness to strike himself. If he's not able to get Curtis down, or at least he's not willing to continuously pursue the takedown and grind him up against the cage and whatnot, it's not going to be great. Like Millender looked okay versus Rory standing, and then he got taken down. And he's out of the water. And then against Magomedkerimov, he looked really good standing, and then got taken down. And he was out of the water. But keep in mind, that's the number 1 and 2 guy in the tournament. So those are very difficult fights. Whereas this fight against Gleison Tibau, yes, he just beat Rory, but it was on the basis of Rory not doing anything, not really anything special that Gleison did. If Millender knows his back's up against the wall, he's got nothing to lose in this spot. Why not go out there and try to make some magic happen? Maybe he can make it happen. But again, this card looks like there's a bunch of underdogs that have a shot. And which one are going to shit in the apple pie? That's what's going to make constructing these lineups, also difficult. Hopefully this next one, though, is going to be a lot easier. Olivier Aubé-Mercier versus Terrill Horcher. Aubé-Mercier is a minus 420 favorite. Come back on Terrill Horcher plus 330. Aubé-Mercier looked awesome his last time out against Marcin Held. I mean, I definitely had to eat some crow on that one. When he got released from the UFC, again, he's fighting elite level opposition. He loses a fight to Arman Sarukian, gets released. It's a 3-fight losing streak. He's 32 years old. Is the Canadian gangster still motivated? You just don't know. Marcin Held, meanwhile, is coming off a win over Nathan Schull, who was the 2-time PFL champion, the $2 million man. He had looked in great form. Held's striking looked a lot better. I mean, he was moving forward the whole time. He was letting his hands go. His wrestling looked pretty on point. I mean, Nathan Schultz is a BJJ black belt and a judo black belt. Marcin Held's taking him down, controlling him on the ground for a little bit. It looked pretty good. So I took that shot on Marcin Held. He was a slight underdog. I thought it was plus money, was good value. And Aubé-Mercier showed up looking physically the best shape he's ever looked like. Takes his strength and conditioning very seriously and was a brick wall that night. Marcin didn't come close on anything. First of all, he loves that southpaw stance, and he uses the 2 southpaw weapons to the best of their abilities, that straight left and that left body kick, right? He melted Marcin Held's insides, battered him up. Left hand was on point. His striking looked a lot better. It looked a lot more refined. And of course, his grappling's top notch. So when Marcin Held, who is a great BJJ black belt, would even try to mix up takedowns or try to get into these grappling spots, he was more than comfortable. He could easily stuff out everything. And also, he was too strong. He's got a judo background of his own. He's got a wrestling background of his own. He looked very well-rounded. Is he able to perform at an elite level in the UFC versus top 10 competition? No, but he was still able to hang with them and give them rounds. I mean, all of his losses were to guys that or at least considered at the time to be high-level opposition. So I give him a pass there. Seeing what he's able to do in PFL, that's some decent stuff. In this spot, he's not originally supposed to take on Horcher. He's supposed to take on Nathan Schultz. So again, you've got the $2 million man, Nathan Schultz. You got a guy that's already won this tournament twice. He's got a lot of back class, trains out of American Top Team. He as well has got the judo. He as well has got some wrestling. He as well has got some decent striking. That's a fun fight. And based on the form we've seen from Schultz from this tournament and the form that we just saw from Obey Mercier, I think Obey Mercier probably still even wins a fight versus Nathan Schultz. But Schultz pulls out and you get Terrill Horcher. The difference between Horcher and Obey Mercier is outside of the Khabib fight, Horcher was starting to lose to like some low end guys. You know, Roosevelt Roberts choked him out with the standing guillotine in his last fight with the promotion. They release him. He takes 2 full years off, and then he recently just resurfaced in New Jersey and picked up a win on the regional scene. Solid victory, first round victory. But I mean, he's got almost no cage time in the last 2.5 years, and he's jumping right into this tournament as a short notice replacement against a guy in Obey Mercier that looked tight, man. He really did. He looked very good. So yeah, I would have to say that Obey Mercier is the runaway favorite. Gets this fight done wherever he wants. As far as standing up with Horcher goes, Horcher's got some decent boxing, and that's where he would like the fight to take place. But again, I mean, Obey Mercier has spent a lot of time working with some top-level guys at TriStar. He's going to be ready for this, and his striking looked pinpoint. The difference here is going to be his ability to mix in the takedowns. And also, Obey Mercier inside the distance has got a great play of cashing, or a great chance of cashing, because Horcher tends to give up these submissions the later the fight goes. If you can take him down, you can grind him. He's going to leave his neck exposed. And Obey Mercier does have the grappling to snatch something up. So I think he's live inside the distance, but straight up for parlay purposes, the minus 420, 420, it seems to be a fair price tag overall. So he's going to be somebody that we're probably going to use on the top ticket, or at the very least, one of those top 2 tickets. Moving down, we got Brett Cooper taking on Tyler Hill. Brett Cooper is a old-timey veteran. I know, only 34 years old, but he has been around the block. He has paid his dues. He's a bad motherfucker. At 34 years old, he's definitely slowing down a little bit. And I mean, with 41 pro fights on his resume, it's understandably so. He should be able to wear out Tyler King and get the victory, but it all just depends on what version of Brett Cooper shows up. I'll give him one thing. This is a guy that should have been signed to a major promotion. And outside of fighting for Bellator way back before the Scott Coker era, he never really got his due. So what he did is, instead of sitting around and fighting bums on the regional scene and collecting small paychecks and letting his career go by the wayside, he decided, I want to fight the best guys in the world. But UFC's not taking me. Bellator's no longer interested. So how are you going to fight the best guys in the world? So he goes to Russia and he fights a long list of the scariest guys in the world and actually gives a pretty damn good account of himself. Just to let you know, his run in Russia includes, he fought Beslan Isayev, Aslambek Saidov, Mukhmed Bermahov, Sharef Davlat Muradov, Azmagat Amagov, Salamu Abdurrahmanov, Sharaf Davlat Muradov, and Alexei Efremov, winning the latter fight by disqualification. Oh my God! Who signs up for this shit? You'd have to be crazy. Who goes to Russia and fights these guys? And it wasn't like they just had Russian-sounding names, scary Russian-sounding names. I don't even think we saw a singer. We didn't even get a single Alexander. What we did get was 2 Sharafs, a Salamu, an Azmat, a Mukhmad, an Aslambek, and a Beslan. Not even an Alexander. Scary Russians. It was scary Russians with good fucking records, man. 12-1, 10-0. 19-4, 34-7. He won all those fights, and his last one over a 20-10 opponent, again by disqualification, but all the same, gets the victory. He hasn't fought in 2 years, but one would imagine that he's still got something in the gas tank, and he's still a pretty durable enough guy. He does have skills everywhere. He's a pretty big enough body for the weight class. He's able to wear on a lot of guys, and he's just one of these old-timey OGs. Like, he's got old man tricks that he's able to use super effectively. Tyler Hill, his best chance here is going to blow out Cooper right in the first round, because outside of that, Tyler Hill absolutely falls apart. He's a pretty athletic, in shape guy, but he's a one-round or bust guy. If you look at pretty much his entire record, all of his victories are first or second round, but these are his losses. Wade Johnson choked him out in the third. Dwight Grant on the Contender Series knocked him out in the second. Brock Weaver choked him out in the second. Lance Thompson knocked him out in the first. Johnny Parsons knocked him out in the first. And then he decided, you know what? Fuck MMA. I'm going to try bare knuckle boxing. Hops over to the world of bare knuckle boxing and gets knocked out in the first round by Zion Tomlinson, who just got dusted on the last BKFC card. So not exactly great company. What he does do is that his wins, he starts off well and probably wins in the first or maybe first and a half round. Beyond that first round, his game completely falls apart. He gets tired and he becomes super susceptible to not only the submissions. He's been submitted 4 times, but he's also been knocked out twice. Both of those times were in the first round. And then he just lost a bare knuckle boxing match where, again, he was knocked out in the first round. He's hopping back over to MMA. And I truthfully do believe Cooper's been off for 2 years. He's a pretty well-liked guy. He's always someone that's stepped up on the plate. And he's someone you could give a big name fighter to because he's paid his dues. He got 41 pro fights and he's fought some legit competition, right? Tyler Hill, he's 10-5. He's coming off a first round knockout loss and then a first round bare knuckle boxing loss. So technically, last 2 combat sports bouts have not gone his way. He hasn't looked particularly good. His wins are over fairly low level competition. One would imagine if Cooper's not all the way shot and doesn't get clipped in the first round, he should win this fight. So the odds are reflective that Cooper is the favorite, minus 200, and he should win the fight. And it's just going to be total like buyer beware. Like we got to get through that first round, and then that experience should overtake the athleticism and the youth. Moving on, we have got Magomedkerimov Umalatov versus Michael Terrill. So this line's probably blowing up way out of hand. No, it's only minus 620. Yeah, you want Umalatov on everything. He's a top ticket play. He's most definitely. I'm actually surprised it's sitting at minus 620. That seems wrong to me. But he's on a 16 fight winning streak. That includes his massive amateur experience where he was the European WMMA champion. You know, fought pretty decent guys as an amateur, turns pro, and he's been flawless as a pro. What I want to take note is, you know, backed by Khabib, backed by all the top guys in Russia, you know, in on some of the best training in the world. But this fight with Bowen, I mean, he comes in with Bowen and absolutely blows right through him. He looked very, very strong, knocks him out 7 seconds into the second round. It looked like he's a scary enough Russian prospect. You know, I can't really fault the guy. He's got a really big finishing rate. I mean, I think he's finished all 10 of his pro fights inside the distance, and 2 fights back against this Rashid Koichakev, again, scary Russian names. He finishes him a 3rd round doctor stoppage, right? So, I mean, he just keeps wearing on the guy. So I'm not super worried that he's one of these 1-round guys that's going to get tired. I think he is going to be able to continuously push his pace throughout, and I think that he's going to give a lot of guys a lot of problems. What PFL wants to do is they want to build this guy up, right? You don't want to just throw him in there with some of the toughest fighters in the world. You want to build him up a little bit, right? You want to get some quick wins, add to his highlight reel. He just came off a huge win over Bowen where he knocks him out, again, 7 seconds into the second round. It's a nice highlight reel finish. Perfect. Let's build the guy a few more and then get him in the next PFL tournament. Build a name for the guy. Build a resume for the guy. Build a highlight reel for the guy. Even if for whatever reason you were to say, you know what? Let him go to the UFC 3 fights down the road. UFC wants to market him. You own the video library to those fights. So you don't want boring decisions. You don't want tough fights. You don't want them to lose. You want them to go out there and roll people up. Now, Michael Terrill isn't a walk in the park, and I think he was supposed to apparently fight Gleison Tibau. That could be wrong. His problem is, again, it comes down to durability. He's just not a durable guy. How are you going to beat a scary Russian? Well, as we mentioned, maybe he's finished so many fights in the first round. Maybe, I don't think so, but maybe you can extend him. Maybe you can tire him out the longer this thing goes. Draw him out a little bit. The problem there is that you need durability. You need to be able to take his best shots early and then start to wear on this guy. And that's the problem with Michael Terrill. In 7 pro fights, he's been finished every single time. Choked out in the first round, choked out in the third round, choked out in the first round, choked out in the first round, choked out in the third round, choked out in the second round, and Nashan Burrell knocked him out in the first round. Sabah Hamasi knocked him out in the first round. 17 seconds into the first round. And Nashan Burrell knocked him out a minute 16 into the first round. So as you can tell, his first 5 pro losses are all by submission, right? And then his latter 2 pro losses are by knockout. And that's going to be a big problem here against Umalatov, who can do either. You know, he can take him down and he can submit him if that was the path of least resistance. But more than likely, he's going to stand with this guy and torch him. And again, that's the route that I see taking place here. So at minus 620, he's another one of these big favorites. But I feel more comfortable with him than Magomedkerimov, who's the same price, only because Magomedkerimov could have a knee that respect. Whereas this guy's good to go. He is good to rock and roll. And Lombardo, the price on Lombardo is minus 270. The comeback on Bowen is plus 220. Lombardo is one of these guys that you actually like to, and even though, you know, there's a lot of holes in his game, he's a decent enough wrestler that he could just stick to that and grind up lower level guys. Did it work for him on the Contender Series? To a degree. He lost his first fight on the Contender to Kyle Daukaus, who in hindsight is not a terrible loss. I mean, Daukaus went on to fight in the UFC himself and not give a terrible account of himself. But then his next time around, they brought him back to Contender Series, and he actually wins a decision. The problem is they're boring decisions. So Dana doesn't like it. The UFC doesn't like it. What's he going to do? Come to the UFC and just grind guys against the cage, take them down and hold them? He's 33 years old. He's not likely to add any really new elements to his overall game plan. It's mostly just going to be stick to this. But it'll work against some lower level guys. He trains out of American Top Team. He's very well trained. He's got great training partners. But he himself just seems like he just goes back to his fundamental skills every time, which is take you down. He does have a bit of a submission game, but it all comes down from the power wrestling. You know, he's got an arm triangle choke. He might have a guillotine choke. He might be able to snag up a neck in transition, but for the most part, he's just looking to take you down, flatten you out, do some mild ground and pound, control these rounds, win decisions. His last 2 fights, again, both decision victories. He beat Jose Caceres, who's the only man to defeat Kamaru Usman. So, you know, decent enough win, but he just grinds him, wins the decision. That last fight against Corey Coupe on Contender Series, which is his second Contender Series fight, Coupe's a sport karate guy, and he's got super long legs, man. You don't really want to stand in front of him. So he just gets on him and gives him an old-fashioned grinding, takes him down, controls him. It's not enough to get the contract, but it's enough to get a victory. And for our betting purposes, we're just looking to secure a victory. He was initially supposed to take on Omar Johnson a few months ago. The fight gets canceled. So one would believe that even though he's coming off effectively a 1-year layoff, he had a fight get canceled 2 months ago. He's obviously in training. He's obviously getting ready. It doesn't say why the fight was canceled. Hopefully it wasn't on his end, but I would assume it wasn't on his end. Either the event got canceled, something COVID related, the opponent pulled out, who knows, or maybe he knew PFL's going to come sniffing for an opportunity. I'm going to bail out of this one and take that one 2 months later. I do expect him to be in pretty good shape and ready to rock and roll. Kyron Bowen, I mean, he's experienced in the sense that he's, I believe, 9-6. He's got some experience, however, just doesn't got super high level experience. I think that he's going to be kind of out of his element here against Lombardo, who trains with some elite guys on a day-to-day basis. And fight stays standing, he's got a striking advantage. But with Lombardo doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to stay standing too long. Like, he's not one of these wrestlers that decides, oh, I'm going to try out some new tricks in there. He just kind of gets to his game plan once he gets uncomfortable standing. And Bowen should make him uncomfortable standing enough that he shoots those takedowns early and often. So that's the angle I'm hitting on this one. A minus 260. He's a big enough favorite. Totally understand that. But Lombardo's got the kind of style that wins fights. He's out of American Top Team. The show's in Florida. He's going to have a lot of fans and friends at the event. He's going to have a lot of teammates competing. It just kind of seems like it's a Lombardo fight. And then finishing things off, I think we've got Elvin Espinoza taking on Hopetown Stewart. Elvin Espinoza is minus 255, Hope Stewart plus 210. The only real worry here is that Elvin Espinoza is just really young into his career. So you don't like paying these minus 260 price tags for guys that haven't really fought in any legitimate competition, haven't really had to be tested later in rounds. In his case, he's finished the majority of his pro fights inside the first round. He was 6-2 as an amateur, but again, had finished the majority of those inside of the first round. He has a notable loss as an amateur to Taiwan Claxton, who just got released actually, but was fighting for Bellator, and, former Ohio State wrestler, solid guy all around, very good athlete, just didn't translate to, I guess, enough for Bellator, so they released him, but a decent enough fight. I would reckon that fight, he was getting taken down and controlled. That's probably the way to beat him. We just haven't seen enough. It seems like his grappling's pretty on point. It seems like his striking's pretty on point. Physically, he's in excellent shape. There's just too many unknowns there for a minus 260 price tag. Hopetown Stewart, meanwhile, he comes in with a 5-1 record and does train out of MMA Masters in Florida. So again, he's another guy that's going to be well trained and who's local to the area. But his wins are over just such low level guys. Like he last competed a year ago, winning over an 0-4 opponent, and took him almost a full round to defeat that 0-4 opponent. Prior to that was his first ever real step up as a professional, and he had lost, and it was back in 2018. So he fought once to a legit step up, loses, takes 2.5 years off, comes back and defeats an 0-4 opponent, and then takes another year off. Well, I can assure you there's reasons for all of that. Do I know the reasons? No. Could you find the reasons by searching online? I don't think so. But if you knew him personally, I'm sure that there's a story there that there's a reason why he's only fought the one time in the last 4 years at this point. But they're bringing him in here essentially to push over Elvin Espinoza, who seems to be the A side. He's young, he's hungry. Again, he's in excellent shape. He seems to have a developing skill set. And they don't want him just beating guys with shitty records. At least with Hopetown Stewart, he has a nice looking 5-1 record. So it looks good on the resume of another guy to go out there, beat a 5-1 fighter. That way, when people wiki cap you or people sure dog cap you, or people don't really look into it, they're going to see, oh, a 5-1 guy. Instead, when you fight guys like Jay Ellis, who's 14-70, or Damian Kirby, who's 1-3, like, yeah, what do you take from those fights? That you won them? Well, it was kind of more or less assumed that you were going to win those fights. Fight a better looking guy. Hope Town Stewart looks like a better looking guy, but Elvin Espinoza ultimately should get the victory. Looking at the card, we've got what? Pretty much all favorites. We're going to take Cooper as an underdog at the top. We're going to go Magomedkerimov as the favorite. We're going to go, you know what? I'm very strongly considering going Rush Manfio. I know I still got until tomorrow to officially lock it in, but something seems sniffy to me on that one. Loic Radzhabov, we're getting a good price on him, so I'm solid with that. I guess I'm going to go Gleison Tibau, but we're going to put him lower end. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, I like him. Brett Cooper should be able to get the victory. He'll be a mid-level play. Umalatov is going to be a top-ticket guy. Michael Lombardo is going to be like a mid-level play. And Elvin Espinoza is probably going to end up being a mid-level play. That should be a low-level play because we just don't know enough. But ultimately, he should be able to go out there and get the victory. And should is a big statement on PFL cards because, like, should doesn't typically tend to happen. If you're just looking for who those safe guys are, I think you go Magomedkerimov at the top, Umalatov. It's all over the place. I wish Best Fight Odds would just list it in order. Like, no, don't listen in order. Make everything difficult. Yeah, but we go Magomedkerimov, Aubin-Mercier, and Umalatov gets you close to even money. And then from there, the other pieces that we're going to add is Loic at -150 is going to add a ton. And there was one more. I guess Brett Cooper. It's going to be a greasy-ass parlay. So definitely tomorrow I'm going to tweet out some greasy-ass PFL parlays. And then with Bellator being on the same night, I think the strategic play would be, even if you only like 3, maybe 4 of these PFL fights, to put them with your favorite 3 or 4. Maybe on the Bellator side of things, it looks a little safer. You can go up to like an 8-fight parlay. The greasy, we're going for them BRPs, baby. We're going for them 12-fight ones. But because there's 2 cards, you don't have to have overexposure into this one. Like, honestly, I would love to play Brett Cooper. I'd love to play Michael Lombardo. I'd love to play Elvin Espinoza. They all should win. On a Bellator card, they probably do win. On a PFL card, I've had so much bad luck. But what can you do? Hopefully Florida gets it right. That's pretty much all I can say about that. Yeah, this is for everybody that was asking about the PFL show or the plays in general, because I know PFL has just been such a greasy run. I really appreciate that people are interested in the show. Hardcore fight fans, you guys are my people, and I appreciate it as always, all the support. If you haven't checked out Mixed Martial Madness episode 1 and 2 out, do appreciate the support there as well. If you haven't seen it, you can definitely give it a watch. Build a half hour, 40 minutes, so less than a preview show. And yeah, let's cash some tickets. Let's make some money. It's going to be some greasy money. It's going to be some sweaty money. But would we have it any other way?